How to get a UK #1 album. 23 copies of a lottery winner's anxiety replacement therapy. Ahoy everybody, and welcome to this video. So something a little bit different here, looking at one album, and that album is Anxiety Replacement Therapy by the Lottery Winners. So bit of background on Lottery Winners for those of you who haven't heard me talk about them before. They are a band from Leigh near Manchester, and they formed about 15 years ago, went a long way with little or no success, but started to build up a bit of a reputation as a live act. Seymour Stein spotted them in a little pub with only about 6 people in them, but he was one of those guys, and he fell in love with them and their music, and they were the last big signing he did before he died. I say big signing, last signing he did before he died. They signed to Warner Brothers, released their first studio album, the self-titled album, through Warner Brothers. Then Seymour Stein was made redundant, and the Lottery Winners decided that they didn't want to be there anymore, so have since gone independent. They've released another proper album called Something to Leave the House For, an album they recorded during lockdown of cover versions, Sounds of Isolation. So that's the debut album. It's just called The Lottery Winners. Yeah, Sounds of Isolation. They released an EP, again during lockdown. The Start Again EP. And then their second full album, I mean it's an EP, but it's 8 tracks on it. Songs to Leave the House For was their second proper album. And then the new album, it's their third full studio album, 5th album total, Anxiety Replacement Therapy. And on Friday the 5th of May, it became the UK's #1 album. It stayed there for 1 week, and then the album dropped out of the charts completely, out of the top 100 albums, matching the pattern of all their releases. They've all charted on the first week and then dropped out of the charts. But this reached #1. How did they do it? Basically, they're not a big band. They don't get a huge amount of radio airplay. They have a good following as a live act. They are a fantastic live act. I saw them supporting Sleeper a few years ago and thought they were amazing, and have been a fan ever since, and have collected them ever since. Hence why I have 23 copies of this album. But yeah, because they've got a dedicated following, by releasing that many copies of the album, fans were buying multiple copies, and that's basically how they got the #1. So let's see what they released. So initially they announced the album and they put it on their web store, and you could buy various bundles, and one of the bundles was everything. So that's what I ordered. That was 16 different formats, and it was just over £100, I think. So yeah, I ordered that. But then various additional formats were made available, and I gradually ordered all those, and I'll talk you through those as we come to them. So there are 5 cassette copies, so I shall start with those. So we have the standard cassette, with a normal photo of the front cover on it, and that's signed by the whole band. Then they released 4 band member cassettes. So we have Tom, the lead singer. These vary slightly. The cassettes are the same, but we have black inner on that. And again, signed by the relevant band members. They sign on the cassette case. We have Katie, bass and occasional lead vocals. Again, the black inner. Rob, lead guitar and vocals. Very occasionally, live he does lead vocals, but not on record. And then Joe, the drummer. So that's for 5 cassette versions. Then CDs. The initial release was a standard CD in a little cardboard wallet. Again, signed by all the band. Then the deluxe CD, which came in a proper keep case. Again, signed by the whole band. And then again, the individual band members. So we got Tom, Katie, Rob, and Joe. Now these go together to make a big picture of the band. I'll put a photo in here because it's easier than trying to hold it up for you. They then announced this CD. So December last year they played a gig at Manchester Albert Hall with an orchestra, and this version of the album has to include the original album to count towards a chart. So it has the original album, and then at the end there are 8 tracks recorded live at Manchester Albert Hall. And that has a different CD. There are also, no, we'll come to those in a minute. A couple of weeks, no, in fact it was after the album was released, I think. It was either just before the album was released or just after it was released. This was announced, and this is Acoustic Replacement Therapy. So again, it has the full album on, because it has to count towards the charts, but then acoustic versions of all the songs. And that's just your standard Daisy CD. Then, after the album was released, definitely, they announced that they're playing their biggest ever show later this year at the Manchester Apollo. And so to commemorate that, they brought out this, which is the Manchester Apollo edition of the album. So this is just the standard album, but in a unique sleeve. Put the standard Daisy on there. They also released a photo book about the making of the album, and that has a signed copy of the standard version of the CD attached to it, so this counts towards the charts. So as you can see, the album features Shaun Ryder, Boy George, Frank Turner, they've released a colouring book. So these are images drawn by various band members that you can colour in if you so wished. And again, a signed standard version of a CD in there, so that counts towards the charts. A comic book. This is the second one of these they did. They did one with Something to Leave a House For as well. So this is for lottery winners in America. And it is proper one, and again, signed version of the CD, standard CD in the back, so that counts towards the charts. And then we have the vinyl copies. So we have let's get these right. Okay. So here we have it. Again, fully signed. So this was the standard version available through their web store. And I will take this opportunity to let you know that that Martin there is me. They did a fundraising campaign for an American tour back in, I think it was the start of last year, if not it was towards the end of the year before. And they did a campaign through coffee to raise, where you can buy them a coffee, to raise money to pay for the tour basically, and I contributed towards that. And as a result, there were sort of various prizes for helping, and as a result of that I won the rights to have a thank you in the credits. So this is the standard version that was initially released, and this is, as you can see, yellow, but it is a marbly yellow. It's very pretty. They also released a black version, which was announced shortly after, and I didn't order it for ages. And then Banquet Records, you know, I knew I was going to get it, but I just kept just not ordering it, if you see what I mean. Then Banquet Records announced that they were doing one of their things where you can get a personally signed copy of it. So I pre-ordered one through them, and I asked them to dedicate it to me, and I just asked them to write a favourite lyric on there, and that's what they've done. So it's dedicated to Martin, and everything seems smaller, which is from Letter to Myself, Letter to Myself. As you can see, signed by the band. So sleeve and everything exactly the same. It's very staticky sleeves, unfortunately. And that's just on black vinyl. Then there was an independent record store exclusive version, which I pre-ordered through my local independent record store, Slice of Vinyl. And it's this one. And this is on duck egg vinyl, they call this. So again, everything else exactly the same. This sort of translucent snot green. There is an HMV exclusive version, which is on clear vinyl. It's a bit of a smoky clear rather than a completely translucent. Now, all the previous albums and EPs had come out on pink vinyl, so a few weeks before the release of the album they announced that they were doing a pink vinyl version. And then finally, and again they did this for the last album, they've done a Blood Records exclusive version. So Blood Records are a small record label or record manufacturer that specialise in unique versions of albums. The last one was a picture disc. This is also a picture disc, but this has got completely different artwork. So you can see. So to advertise the release of the album, they recorded a little promo video mimicking the TV show Art Attack, which was a children's ITV show hosted by Neil Buchanan in the 90s and noughties, I think. And he used to sort of do giant art projects made out of everyday objects and things like that, as well as normal art projects. So this was sort of a pastiche of that, and that's sort of the theme of this version. So you can see the titles spelt out in post-it notes, and it's a new photo of them lying on a backdrop. Completely different handwritten font on the back. Just realised this is numbered, so it's number 62 of 1,000. Hadn't even spotted that before. So it's a different colour inner sleeve with a different photo on it. And then the picture disc comes in a separate sleeve. So that mimics the Art Attack logo. So in Art Attack there is a character called the Head, which was a little bust of a sort of a Greek statue or Roman statue that used to talk. And for the video they somehow persuaded Joe the drummer to dress up as the Head, which he wasn't impressed with, but that has become the image for the picture disc, much to his chagrin, I think. So that's all the physical versions of the album. So let's say 23 physical copies. Also, as part of that initial bundle, this doesn't count towards a chart because it doesn't have the actual album on it, but there is this, which is the Therapy Sessions EP. I can't remember what they advertised this as being. It's a CDR, I think. Yeah, it is. But basically, there's a couple of different versions of a couple of the album tracks. There's couple of different versions of previous tracks, and a couple of brand new tracks on here, and very good it is too. So that's, as I say, the 23 physical plus that. There is also, of course, digital copies, which obviously count towards charting. So you could have the standard album you could download. You could download the acoustic album, and then a day or two before the final chart was announced, they released a version with basically a director's commentary on. So it's the album and then them sitting talking about the tracks and explaining the tracks sort of interspersed between them, which I have downloaded bought and downloaded, but I haven't listened to yet. The download copies, digital copies, I bought both on iTunes. I also bought the standard album on Amazon, again just to sort of help them get the number one. So I actually bought 27 copies of the album, but it worked. It did the trick. They got to number one. I saw them live. I've seen them twice in a fortnight, basically. I saw them live the day the album came out. So that was the 28th, I think, of April. And they were sort of celebrating the fact that the album was out and asking people to buy it, etc. And that was a great gig, as it always is with them. Then they did an out-store. So that's like an in-store performance at a record shop. But because of popularity, etc., they couldn't do it in the store at the record shop. So it was done through Pie and Vinyl, which is a shop in Southsea in Portsmouth. Well, it's not, Southsea technically isn't in Portsmouth, but it's on Portsea Island. And it was held at the Staggeringly Good Brewery, which is near Fratton Park, which is Pompey's stadium. It's on an industrial estate there. There was 300 people there, which of course would never fit in a store. So you could either buy a copy of the album and get a ticket with that, or they did do it so you could just buy the ticket. So because I'd bought every format already by the time this was announced, I just bought the ticket. £11 it cost, which is a bargain. And it was more of a stripped down show. They were calling it acoustic. It wasn't really. Rob still had an electric lead guitar. Katie still had electric bass. Tom played acoustic throughout. And Joe had a so it wasn't really an acoustic version, and they had backing singers, as they always do when they play Pompey, because they have some backing singers who live in Pompey that they use. But yeah, that was a very much, you know, by now obviously it was the #1 album. They had their #1 album trophy with them, which featured regularly. It was passed around the audience. At the end of the show, they left it with the audience so that people could take photos with it. I didn't, because I wanted to get home, because I'd been up since 4:30 that morning. And just asked them to leave it on the merch stand at the end, which is very trusting of them, but I believe it worked. You know, it was very much a celebration. They had no proper set list. A couple of songs from the new album were requested from the audience that they hadn't rehearsed, but they did them anyway. It was a lot of fun, great gig, and as I say, very much a celebration. So yeah, one thing I haven't talked about is the actual album. It is a fantastic album. I absolutely love it. I've listened to it at least a dozen times since it came out. I listened to it 7 times on the day it came out, knowing I was seeing him live that evening. Yeah, it really is a fantastic album. Highly recommended. But yeah, that nowadays is how to get a UK #1 album. It's not the most extravagant release of an album recently. You may have seen a band called the Reytons, Reytons. I'm not sure how clear that was with my little speech impediment. Got to #1 a couple of months ago. They released 37, I think it was, different versions of the album. I'm not sure what those formats were and how many of them were digital, etc. But that's how they got to #1. So whilst this is extravagant, it was nowhere near as extravagant as they did. But I'm all for it personally. You know, the people they were beating to #1 in the charts, like Jessie Ware and The National, are signed to major labels. They pay Spotify for streaming, for, you know, to be boosted on the playlists and etc. on the playlists, etc. They got, you know, huge campaigns behind them, and they beat them to #1 just by working hard themselves and making stuff that fans would want to buy. Yeah, I'm all for it personally. Yes, it, you know, it's cost me a fair bit of money, but I'm happy to own all of them. And apart from the cassettes, because I have not really got any easy way of listening to those anymore, I will listen to every single one of those, even though it's the same album 23 times. I will play every single one of them, because that's what I do. If I, you know, buy multiple copies of an album, I still listen to every version. Otherwise, why buy them? But yeah, hope you found that interesting. That's how to get a UK #1, courtesy of the lottery winner's anxiety replacement therapy. Thank you for watching. Like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video. Thanks. Bye.